Today, on the Premiership Perusal podcast, we recap the Premier League season that has been up to this point. We cover surprises and disappointments, along with a variety of discussions, including Europe, relegation, even appearance by Dr. Sam. He's back. All that along with predictions for the weeks ahead. This is the Premiership Perusal podcast.
Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero! Back, Fuchs, and the ball in behind Damian Vardy! It's 11! It's heaven for Jamie Vardy!
You are an ostrich. Well, your head must be in the sand. Is your head in the sand? Are you flexible enough to get your head in the sand?
Now the fans are shouting every week, Louis van Gaal's army! Louis van Gaal's army!
Feet after a fabulous start, the game just got away from you there.
I have nothing to say.
Nothing to say about the game at all.
Drama from day one! This is the league we want to watch!
We're live.
We're live.
The Queen's dead.
Back in the saddle, unlike her.
Oh, it feels good to be back. There was no games this weekend. We're all very sad.
Yeah.
But we got some games. We got some games tomorrow. Saturday,
Absolutely.
Sunday.
Yeah, the 2 Friday games is weird, which I think what's more weird is they had it scheduled this way
Yeah.
before the Queen died. Like, why were there 2 Friday games?
They knew. Conspiracy.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into it. This podcast, we're just going to be kind of recapping stuff that's happened so far. Give little mini assessments of where teams are at
Yes.
early on into the season, as we have a little mini break. But we, as Sam alluded to, are ready to start back up again. We're going to start, biggest surprise, I have 4 options. Brighton, Fulham, Bournemouth, or Everton. Can I lay out the case for both, or for all of them?
Please do.
And then you decide which one, okay?
Yes.
Brighton, top 4, right off the bat. Some good performances. The attack, really minus like 1 or 2 games, hasn't looked like completely dire in every game. There's been moments, even during the draws.
Mm-hmm.
Defense is solid as ever. Their midfield guys are stepping up. You know, we kind of questioned with Basuma gone. They're making a nice leap. Guys like Caicedo and Mwepu's a little more attack than, defensive-minded like Basuma. But all in all, Brighton, terrific performances so far. Fulham, we had them slated for the bottom. I think a lot of people had them relegation tier. In 10th right now. They've cooled a little bit. The main thing is their home form. They're insane at Craven Cottage. Yeah,
not to mention Mitrovic.
Oh,
The man on fire.
Oh my gosh, he is the man.
He's the man.
Next up, Bournemouth win the first game at Villa, lose predictably to Arsenal, Man City, and Liverpool. Scott Parker sacked unexpectedly, inexplicably, and then they come out in their 5th game on the road at Nottingham Forest. And they come from 2-0 behind to take all 3 points, 3-2. Don't think anyone expected them to take 6 from 6, because obviously no one expected them to get anything from the matches against the big 3, except they're bored, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. They got the Watford board going on.
Yeah. Last up, Everton, only hanging around 16th, but the performances are so much better than last year. It's not quite night and day, but it's
pretty close.
Yeah, they look like an actual team. They look like they have a plan when going in attack. Their defense actually has, shape and can hold their form at moments.
Yes.
All in all, it just looks a whole lot better. Who would you say of those 4 is the biggest surprise so far?
It's tough to say. I think for me, Brighton, it's only been 6 games, and we've seen Brighton in the past where they've gone on a good streak of games, and then they just fall off.
Yep.
It has been better than expected, I will say.
Yes.
Fulham, I was completely down on Fulham.
Yeah.
I still don't feel great about their defense, but
Yeah.
they make it work, and Mitrovic scores a lot of goals. So I respect that. Bournemouth, I'm not entirely surprised because,
We had faith originally.
We had faith, but anytime a new team comes up, it's
Yeah.
within the realm of possibility that they just suck.
Yes.
Which they haven't even sucked. They had a terrible schedule,
Yeah.
and they won.
They won the 2 games that they should have won, and they drew with Wolves at home.
Yeah,
And a goalless draw.
good results. Shouldn't have sacked Scott Parker.
It's honestly one of the most insane things that
There's
has
this
happened.
weird vendetta against Scott Parker.
I think it's just it's gone too far against English managers because people are like Stevie G sucks. All these guys stink, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, Lampard doesn't stink. That he might be like a pleb filter of
Yeah.
like people. It's like he's not great, but he's not that terrible. Scott Parker, same thing. You look at what he's done in the past. He's been fine. His football, the way that his teams play, he gets the most out of teams as you possibly can. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I agree. And Everton, they've been surprisingly good, despite the results not quite going their way. But the performances, like you said, have been encouraging. And I think that's why I'm going to give it to Everton, just because they were so dire. And then all of a sudden it's like you're getting performances out of guys like Iwobi and Tom Davies. And now your back line is actually looking like one of the better back lines, of the lower tier teams.
Yeah.
Cody and Tarkovsky have been excellent. Patterson's been really good as well.
I like their fullbacks. Patterson and Mikolenko are pretty solid.
Yeah, Mikolenko has gotten much better since
He
starting
originally came. Yeah.
last second half of the last season. I guess it was just kind of like they sold Richarlison. And
They
it seemed
sold
like,
Richarlison and they sold Digne, 2 kind of luxury guys
Yes.
to have on your team.
Yeah.
And when you're just fighting to be mid-table / last year even just stay up, you can't have guys like that. You need to have guys that are going to be able to help you win now. And in terms of getting a lot of funds from Digne and from Richarlison, not to mention offloading their contracts, being able to spend that in key areas and increase your depth in defense, increase your just in general quality in defense.
Yeah.
I mean, they actually made solid signings this summer and stuff, so
Yeah, I think that's why it's the most surprising, because they actually made some like reasonable signings that weren't flashy or anything, like Tarkovsky on a free, Cody on a loan.
And we ripped we didn't rip the Tarkovsky because it's free, but we weren't as high as other people on it.
Yeah.
But he's come back and he's playing better than he looked at Burnley last year, maybe even the year before that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I would have to go Everton too. It was close with Brighton because, I mean, even though it is start the year, we've seen Brighton before. Top 4, it's top 4. But
That's true.
Fulham, it feels like a one-man show a lot of times.
Yeah, it does.
1.5. Bernd Leno's been pretty good for him.
I'm still waiting for Fulham to be more exposed. I feel like they got pretty exposed in the Tottenham match.
Yeah. And then
When
as
you
far
got
as-
guys like Mbabu out there, which is terrible.
doesn't know where to be, slow as heck. And as far as Bournemouth, it's more than I thought they'd be, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. They literally, their fixtures were just brutal for a while.
Yeah.
So, all right. Biggest surprise other than Mitrovic for a player: Pascal Gross, Bobby Firmino, Lisandro Martinez, or Mr. Paulinho for Fulham.
I think if you went like Gross McAllister, kind of like a
Okay,
1-2
like a
punch,
combo. Okay.
I think that would probably do it. Firmino, it's always interesting to see. I mean, he just kind of hangs around.
Yeah.
He's not like first choice, but he can put in some good performances as there's a mosquito flying around. Lisandro, I mean, we did partake in some memes about how he was very short, but
Yeah.
he's looked pretty solid so far. It'll be interesting to see how he goes up against more
People are a
physical
bit
threats.
still too high on him and ready to anoint him as like one of the best center backs in the league still, but
Yeah,
I
it's early days.
know, and people still point to his aerial success. They've done a much better job hiding him as of late for a little bit, not putting him in scenarios where because against Brighton and against Bournemouth, I mean, well, I think he played or not Bournemouth, Brentford. He played in that game, correct? I remember he played against Brighton because he looked just putrid, but they're putting him in just not good spots. Now they've done a better job of kind of utilizing him.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Paulinho, I know I mentioned how Fulham's more of a one-man show, but he's actually looked really well given the fact that he's kind of one of those guys where it's like it's going to be him winning the ball and no one else really in midfield for Fulham.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that can play like the pure 6, like destroyer physical role. My only concern with him is that he picks up a lot of yellow cards. I think
he's at
got
4.
one like 4, yeah. It's like, that's slightly concerning. I mean, obviously he's going to get a 1-game suspension after the next one, but
I was going to say, cheers to whoever gets to play Fulham when he's not in the line.
yeah, I mean, it helps a lot when you have a bad defense, but you have a really solid defensive midfielder in front to kind of
compensate for it.
Hide that
Yeah.
poor defensive line.
him and Bernd Leno have been good. So,
yeah.
Who would you say is the biggest surprise? Because I have one in mind.
Probably Paulinho.
Okay.
More so just because like he wasn't really on my
Plus
radar.
transitioning.
Yeah.
Sam's trying to swat the mosquito.
This bastard.
I'm going to say, I think it's Firmino.
Firmino. Okay.
I mean, sure, a lot of his production came in like that one game, but he's just been really solid, and they need him to be because Darwin Nunez is not. He's not the man we thought he was.
He's fraudulent.
So they needed him to kind of step up, and they haven't really relied on him that much the last couple of years. They've mainly been rocking Salah, Mane, and Jota for the most part, and then Firmino's kind of been more of a rotational guy.
Yeah.
Now it's like they kind of have to have Firmino in there right now.
You know, I think the thing is that Firmino brings is it's kind of like all those guys that they had, like Firmino, Salah, Jota. It seems like those guys have like a really good mentality, whereas a guy like Nunez seems pretty immature.
He was on the field crying against Everton.
Yeah.
Because Tarkovsky was giving him the stick.
Whereas Firmino, like, he doesn't play every game, but when he does, you know, he plays to his best efforts, and he doesn't. I haven't heard, you know, that he's complained about like a lack of playing time or anything. So just to have those kind of characters is good to have.
Especially going from when he first signed for them, he was probably one of, if not the best player in that squad, because it was definitely during the beginning of the rebuild under Klopp and stuff.
Yeah.
I think they signed him and Benteke at the same time, or him and Balotelli at the same time. I forget. Some tragic
the
other
meme
guy with
era
him.
of Liverpool.
Yeah. Biggest disappointment other than Mo Salah. I had to put all these like restrictions on it because otherwise it'd be too easy to answer.
I don't even know if I would say Mo Salah is the most disappointing. I think
you have to.
I think that's more of a case of Liverpool have been bad.
But he has not looked good on the ball. He's not in the spots he used to be. He's not creating as much. I think he's been significantly more neutralized, even compared to last year when he came back from the Africa Cup of Nations. He's still scoring goals every once in a while. So he's just not in these spots.
Yeah.
I said, so here's the 4. We have Mason Mount, 0 goals, I think 0 assists still through 5 or 6 games. He looked a little better the last couple games, but I think Chelsea just have not got him involved enough, but still, there's not nearly enough production out of him, given the fact he is, he's been Chelsea's kind of main goal-scoring threat the last year or two.
Yeah, I think part of that is like it's pretty hard to look good in the Chelsea offense the way they've been playing.
True.
Unless your name is Raheem Sterling for some reason.
Yeah, well, Raheem Sterling is just too good, apparently. I always wonder, like, why they... If you're going to be going with Reece James and Kukurea or Ben Chilwell, it's going to be a lot more crossing. It's like, wouldn't you want just a header of the ball? Like, I get Romelu Lukaku kind of crapped all over them and stuff, but...
Could he come back under Graham Potter?
Bring him back.
The return.
He's back.
He's always loved Chelsea.
Yes, always.
Just hated Tuchel.
his love of the money. Mr. Jared Bowen.
Yeah, that's been tough to see.
Yeah,
I mean,
West
I think
Ham
West
has
Ham
just been weird.
Kind of haven't really.
They've been
found
weird,
a
but
rhythm.
I mean, part of that does fall on him because he was so influential in their attack last year. I need to see him with Scamacca, and I need to see, pretty much Scamacca. I need to see them with him up front because I don't think Antonio's got it anymore.
Yeah, and I think it was inevitable that there was going to be some drop off from Bowen. I mean, that was a fantastic
it's just
season.
How much?
And then he really got ran into the ground at the end of the season.
Yeah, 100%. Because they didn't have a deep enough squad, and
Yeah.
this might be a little controversial because he hasn't been that bad. It's just the goal production hasn't been there, whether it's goals or assists. Mr. James Ward-Prowse.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like last season he kind of started the same, where he didn't do much, and then it just kind of came out of nowhere. He started scoring a lot more from free kicks and penalties.
Yeah.
So
I just
I
feel
have
like
hope.
I just feel like when I'm watching Southampton, he doesn't have as much of an impact on the game as he did last year, but it wasn't every game where he had a massive impact too. That's the thing. And there's more options on Southampton. Southampton has a better squad this year than last year, and I think that's part of why you're not seeing as much of an impact from James Ward-Prowse.
Well,
you have better guys going forward. Armstrong actually looks like a real player this year going forward. You have Joe Aribo. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like Jay Adams is fine, but...
they were so deprived of any quality
exactly.
before. Well, I'll tell you, he's going to start performing because I transferred him out of my fantasy Premier League team.
Oof. And here's this one right here. I think it's between Salah and this guy for most disappointing so far. Mr. Heung-min Son.
I feel like Son has been terrible and no one has said anything about it.
I've barely seen anything about it either.
He's like the invisible man.
Normally, we talked about in the preview of Tottenham, like if Tottenham want to win the title this year, they need Harry Kane to get going from the offside. Harry Kane, compared to past early starts, this is a good start for him.
True.
It's not the best form of Harry Kane's life, but I mean, compared to what he's done in the past early seasons, this is good.
Yeah.
Kulishevsky still looks amazing.
Yeah.
Their ability to get it forward through the midfield. Højbjerg's been pretty good this year. Honestly, better than last year. Their wingbacks haven't been god-awful, but they haven't been that great. Richarlison's fit in much better than I thought he would, even though he's only capable of scoring offside goals.
And then celebrating said offside goals.
He did it in the Champions League, too. He scored offside, and he's offside by, literally, a mile.
Yeah.
I don't know what this guy's awareness is.
You know, I wonder if with Son, it's just kind of the start of his decline, because he's always been a player that relies heavily on pace.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, he's very technically good, but, I think sometimes it just happens. You drop off physically.
Maybe.
You don't have the pace.
Some guys
yet.
adapt too, though, so who knows? For biggest disappointment, I would say Son. That's who I was leaning towards. And I think you could make a case Son over Salah, or Salah over Son, but I'm going to lead Son.
I think
just because Tottenham have looked really good and Son has had almost no impact on it.
You think Tottenham have looked really good?
Relatively, results wise.
Relatively
I only look at results, Sam.
Have you watched the games, mate?
That's why when I put Everton on there, it didn't make any sense to me. I was like, why did I put Everton here? They're not better than last year.
Yeah. I think it's just interesting to see how some guys kind of avoid the narrative.
I've only watched Tottenham play Fulham this year, by the way.
I know that's a lie. I know you saw the fraudulent game against Chelsea.
I know. I'm just giving you shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like he should get more criticism, but, you know.
It's because he's a nice guy. People don't want to do it to him. And no one cares about
He's
Tottenham.
He's a
Tottenham,
nice guy.
Tottenham is below. Is Tottenham second place in terms of like what people, like if people care about the least?
After Man City, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. I was thinking that the whole time. It's like, I feel like no one cares about Tottenham.
Like if Liverpool win, all fans are going to seethe. If Chelsea win, all fans are going to seethe.
Yeah.
If Arsenal, now that they're getting back to being good, fans are going to seethe. United will always be probably the pinnacle of it.
Full seethe. Yeah.
But when Tottenham win, no one really cares.
No one really cares.
Yeah. Except like the team that's playing them.
The most they get is like, oh, Tottenham made it to the Champions League final. And then, you know, they get a little recognition.
Yeah.
You know?
Biggest disappointment for club. Chelsea. Started slow. Some disappointing losses. Their attack has looked dire for about 80% of the season. And their defenses look kind of old. And their midfield is very reliant on Mr. N'Golo Kante. Liverpool, I don't think they have. Did they have a midfield?
No.
James Milner.
James Milner is not a midfielder. He should be retired.
Their defense has finally been exposed like it should have been last year.
Mm-hmm.
Their attack isn't clicking quite as well. And even, last year, it's not like they were super efficient in attack. It was more they just had so many chances that they're bound to score.
Yeah.
But West Ham, who just the whole aura around the club, they went from Vibes FC to Stinky Poo Poo FC. I don't know what is going on. They have no luck. Yeah, they have no luck.
Yeah.
And then Leicester City, who genuinely look like relegation candidates the way that they're playing right now. It's all facets. Vardy's not as elite as he used to be. Talk about a drop-off with Son. There's definitely a drop-off with Vardy. That was bound to happen. But he's also not getting service, really. There's really... Madison is playing pretty well. Tielemans is playing well as far as like long passes and stuff you noticed during the game. Those are the only two things I've noticed that has been good.
Yeah, I think there's a case to be made for each team like you laid out. I think for me, it's got to be Chelsea, considering the new ownership, the amount of money that has been spent.
Yes.
For them to look worse.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you get worse?
Did they really look worse than last year, though? Because if you look at the point total through the calendar year 2022, I think they are 5th or 6th. They're behind Newcastle. I know that. So it's like, are they really worse? I feel like they've just kind of been stuck in the mud since like last February. I feel like they're the same.
I would say their attack has looked pretty much the same.
Yes. But their defense is
worse.
I don't know. I feel like it's just as leaky. I feel like it was starting to get not very good towards the end of last year.
And I think there's issues with the midfield.
Oh, there is.
100%.
I think that a lot of times, that's the one thing Tuchel talked about. Well, not really, but he briefly mentioned it. But like they need a little bit of reinforcements in midfield, but yet they kept buying defenders and stuff. When Jorginho and Conte are like 31-30, and they're the guys who are running all over the pitch, like 31-30 is relatively old, especially in the Premier League. So
it just seems like Chelsea have a lot of guys that aren't playing in their best position, like Gallagher, Mount. I was going to say
Edouard Mendy. He's definitely not a goalkeeper. Reece James at times when they have him at center back.
At times, not having
Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I guess,
Loftus-Cheek,
when he's
100%.
at wing back.
Loftus-Cheek doesn't have a good position. It should be on the bench.
Yeah, well, he got subbed on, and they conceded against Red Bull Salzburg. So,
and it sure as hell isn't wing back.
Yeah.
I think Chelsea just need to drop the 3-4-3 or whatever they play.
Well, Mr. Graham Potter went with the 4-3-3 in the midweek. So we'll see what that does. But I would have to say the most disappointing is probably if you're thinking about it from a mainstream perspective, it's definitely Liverpool over Chelsea. I think my weird take, I think it's West Ham. 18th, I get like bad run of games happen, but they have what, 1 or 2 points? They don't have a win. They drew Tottenham. I just don't know. And I get it. It's been a lot of bad luck and stuff, but you have so much quality in that team. I feel like it's a disappointing start, and it really puts them in a pigeonhole to get to Europe again, which is where they want to be. Otherwise, they're going to have to sell Rice, and if Bowen never recovers.
Yeah, it's hard to say because, I mean, they were performing really well, but, I mean, we definitely saw last season there were some bad performances.
There's a drop-off. There's a drop-off, and, it was stale, but I feel like a lot of it is because they didn't have depth and guys just, they couldn't play certain guys like Vlasic and stuff. You're signing guys like Skamaka for $40 million. You're signing Carragher. You're signing a bunch of different guys. Signing Paqueta. I mean,
there should be some more life that's been breathed into the team, but it doesn't really feel that
like
way
it,
quite yet. I mean, there's hope. There's hope.
Yes. Speaking of Europe and race for 7th.
Speaking of hope, I just want to say Leicester has none. They suck.
Moving on. Race for 7th. You have to pick one of these teams, or just rate them 1 to 4, or 4 to 1, least likely to most likely, to get in Europe's spot. And we're not saying that they will, but it's fun to think about if you had to pick.
We're just saying who out of this group.
Yes.
We're not saying that these guys will finish
exactly
7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
It's a thought experiment.
Brentford, Brighton, Southampton, Leeds.
I think if you asked me like a week ago, I would have said Brighton.
Yeah.
But now they don't have Graham Potter, so
I know.
There's some
That's why
instability, and that
they still have the hot starts. It's like, can they coast off that? They still have really good players. It's like, can they still capture that energy? I don't know. We'll see.
It's a little
I don't
scary
feel good about
when
it.
you lose your manager after 6 games.
I have them 3rd.
Let me tell you who's not going to, and it's Leeds.
Yeah.
Because their defense is horrendous.
Old Leeds really reared their head against Brentford this past week. It was doing fine, but then, I don't know, I felt like in that game, once Roca and Adams kind of started pushing up more, then it was like, oh, man.
The wheels fell off.
Yeah. When Llorente's got the ball on his foot, it's like you might as well just clear it because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Wisa can just walk up and take the ball off him.
Yeah, I think they missed Christensen as well.
True.
He's been pretty solid.
True. So we have Leeds in last.
Yes. Second to last.
I think you can flip-flop second to last and second.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to say Southampton. I know Southampton, they had a big injury. Lavia is going to be out for quite some time. So that's a big miss.
The 60 million pound man already.
Should have flipped him. Now he's damaged goods.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that progresses, whether it was just a good start or if this is kind of a new chapter in how Southampton are run as a club.
Well, I'll tell you what, right now they're closer to Europe than relegation, so my bold prediction is true as of right now.
Respect.
I would have Southampton and Brighton flopped, but I get what you're saying because the wheel of Hans, you never know where it's going to land. I mean, he could do anything. I wouldn't even be shocked if he got sacked this year, but, then again, he's lasted this long. What would make Southampton sack him? I'm glad we have the same number 1, though.
Yeah, I think Brentford, they're the most
stable,
established.
Yeah.
They got Thomas Frank. They got how they want to play. They got their guys. There's no question marks around Brentford. We know what they are. And it basically comes down to execution.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. They've warded off a few of my worries this year, given the fact that they, I think it was just a rough spell for them, that stretch last year in the middle of the year. I think the problem with that is that they got cold, and it just so happened to be when you played the most games out of the year.
Yeah.
The worst time you could get cold.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But anything else you want to say on that, or you want to move on to the next topic?
Let's move on to the next topic.
Have you changed your thoughts on relegation?
Yes, I have.
Okay. What have you changed your mind about?
Well, I guess it's to me it's not as clear cut as I thought it would be. I thought Fulham was going to be terrible.
Okay.
I thought Forest was going to be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Bournemouth was going to be good. But, okay, yes, Bournemouth did lose 3 games, but they're 3 games you would expect to lose. But they've looked decent. But I still feel like for some reason they're the most likely to go down.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't want them to. They play some really good football at times.
There's been a few more teams kind of thrust in there than I thought there would be. I think that I know I kind of threw it out there early in the year with Wolves would be close to the relegation zone.
Yeah.
And you co-signed that. I don't know. This is about as rough as it can go for them, and I feel like it's only really kind of
And that was prior
up,
to them
but
making 2 big signings as well.
at the same time, they have a rough upcoming schedule and stuff.
Well, I
So-
mean, we still got, 32 games
We'll
left
see.
or whatever. So-
I'm still, and I don't know. Bruno Lage is secret agent of chaos that we don't talk about with his
he is.
players,
Yeah.
and he might be with the board. I don't know. We'll see. I could see him gone at any time. It also, I think it's kind of wonky right now because even though they're kind of high up there, and we just talked about them in Europe, Leeds are definitely a team
I was going to say Leeds.
that, they've built themselves a nice little cushion. I mean, not really because they're like only 4 points off the relegation spots, but hey, it's a win and a draw. There's just teams down there right now that I don't think will be down there. West Ham and Villa, to name a couple. Palace is somewhat low. I think you'll start to see Bournemouth sink a bit, Fulham sink a bit, Leeds sink a bit. But I do think Nottingham, I think it's going to take a long time for them to adjust. And I this is kind of how I felt about them, that they're going to be on that 17th, 18th precipice where it's like they're really,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to make it or not.
It just feels hard to say Forest are going to go down after they made like 19 signings.
And there's solid players in there, really solid,
Yeah.
proven players. So it's hard to say that, but it will take a while to get adjusted. Not to mention, with so many guys, you have to find what guys fit your system perfectly.
and what your system is.
I'm just gonna throw it out. I think your boy has to be dropped, given the fact you have like 20 new guys. Jay Ling.
Jay Lings.
I
yeah,
think he
I
needs to
agree.
be dropped.
They need an actual out-and-out striker. They can't play
Yeah.
without a real striker and just have.
I think the Nigerian
Gibbs
guy
White.
they got from Union Berlin
Union Berlin
should be more
yeah.
wide.
Oh,
I think he should be a little wide.
I think he should be central because he's strong and can hold up
Okay.
play.
I feel like he might get in the way a bit of Gibbs White if you're going to have Gibbs White be central, unless you're just allowing him free roam. Because he's been their one bright spot is Gibbs White.
I was going to push Gibbs White wide.
Okay.
If
You could do
you
either
stick with
way.
like a 4-3-3,
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. I think, what they could do is they could go 2 strikers, hold up play with Mr. What's his name? Awini, something like that.
Awanyi or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Him and Dennis, what do you think about that? They kind of little thunder and lightning. They got the pace and they got the strength.
I'm not sure if there's enough there. I feel like you're sacrificing a bit of like link up play by playing both of those guys.
But if you're gonna have him, the one guy be just a out and out kind of like hold up guy.
Now, if you said 4-4-2 with Gibbs White, now I'm listening. But I still think they need a little more in the midfield.
See, this is the problem with signing 20 guys. You have way too many options.
But it's interesting. You talked about Forest, and you talked about Villa.
Not to mention, we didn't even talk about Brennan Johnson, who's played every single game.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say? Forest and Villa.
I was going to say that it doesn't feel right to say that Forest are going to go down, but then it also doesn't feel right to say like a team like Villa or Leicester are
Yeah.
going to go down. It's like which
I
one feels more wrong?
I genuinely believe Leicester are in a relegation scrap.
I think so.
I think that they are going to be this year's Everton, of team out of nowhere that is fighting for their lives. They didn't spend any money except on Mr. Voot. I don't even know his last name yet.
Yeah.
Their midfield besides Madison is just not great. Dewsbury Hall's not as good, but you're asking a lot out of. I don't like how
I didn't sign on for some Dewsbury Hall hate.
I still love them.
He got benched the last game.
I know, that's why they lost.
They sucked.
Yeah. I just don't know. And like Tielemans out there, like yes, he's playing long balls real well, but I don't know what else he does.
I'll tell you,
Daka's just a pace merchant, but it's like you're not really playing on the counter that much.
I tell you who doesn't do anything.
Who?
That's Sumare.
He does not. What's up with Wilfred Ndidi at center back?
Hopefully that goes away.
You had to loan out Soyuncu?
Yeah.
When
you have like two center backs.
I don't get what's going on with Leicester.
And you had to spend like a good chunk of last season playing midfielders at center back.
Yeah, Marte was center back, for crying out loud. I don't like where they're at.
Yeah. But to me, it's just that like dilemma of like which feels more wrong, Forest going down or a team like Villa or Leicester going down. There's no easy answer, I think, this year.
I don't think my mind can allow Villa to go down, even though Steven Gerrard. I think I would just say if they're actually in threat, they would sack him and get someone else in who could, I would like to think, put this squad to use well enough to keep them up. Because I really, really like this squad that they have. I just don't think that Steven Gerrard could manage this team very well. Or does manage this team very well, rather.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. It's time for Dr. Sam to make an appearance. Put the lab coat on.
All right, it's on.
All right. Good news, bad news, prognosis for Sam. He has the stethoscope in. He's putting it up to the heart of the team. And he's coming out to the family in the waiting room. He's like, we got some good news, or it's gonna be I'm sorry.
Yes.
I got some bad news. First team, Newcastle.
Well, Newcastle, I've got some bad news.
Oh, this is not where I expected this to go. What's the bad news?
Where are the results?
Okay.
So week 1, beat Forest at home.
Yes.
I think that is to be expected. Week 2, draw with Brighton on the road. Okay.
With Brighton, how they're playing, yeah.
Brighton are playing
reasonable.
pretty good.
Yep.
But still.
But they did get outplayed in that game.
They did, and it was a 0-0 draw.
Yes.
And they easily could have scored.
Yeah.
And they easily could have lost as well. The game against Man City at home, they were up 3-0.
3-1.
3-1.
Yes.
And they blew it.
Yep. You got to see that out at home, even though it is City, if you have aspirations for Europe.
And here's the start. Wolves 1-1. You draw to Wolves. I don't like that.
You can't let Wolves get their way and draw you.
I don't like
and keep
that.
it low scoring and boring.
Lose against Liverpool at Anfield. Okay.
On extra time that shouldn't have been added in the first place.
That's fair. And then you draw to Palace.
When you probably should have won. They've been a little bad luck, Brian, this year. But, I mean, that only goes so far. Eventually you have to get
You got to get results.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we were talking about last season with Aston Villa. It's like, oh, they had some games where they played great, but then
they drew.
Then they draw. It's like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
What matters is the final score.
100%. You think if they keep playing this way where they're hovering around like 8th to 12th, that Eddie Howe could get sacked?
I think it's inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have such high expectations of this oil money coming in and whatnot, I mean, it's just at some point it's going to be where he's the scapegoat, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah. See, I thought you'd go good news because it's bound to get better for him, but
yeah, I suppose. I mean,
but bad news is fair because they aren't where they thought they'd be.
Fairly difficult start to the season, to be fair.
Speaking of that team we were just talking about, Wolverhampton Wanderers. Sam,
Yes.
Do we have good news or bad news for them?
Good news. Your team doesn't suck as much as we thought they would.
Oh, my goodness.
Bad news. Your team's still not very good.
Yeah. I like their new signings.
Yes, I do too.
I like Guedes. I like Nunes.
I like Nunes more so than Guedes.
Yes.
So far. Still early days.
I would rather have those guys playing over whoever the hell you have out there.
Yeah,
It's finally something different than just Ait Nouri wide and Neves long balls.
Yeah.
That's nice to have a guy who can thread through. Unfortunately, I think Mr. Raul Jimenez is toast. Like, entirely toast.
Yeah, I think so. Back line has been okay.
Mr.
Center
Neto.
back pairings.
Mr. Neto is not he's not looking very good out there, in my opinion. And I liked him.
Yeah, he's kind of all flash, no substance.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to pass the ball.
Yes.
When you hold on to the ball, allow the defenders to get set, you're just making it more difficult.
I do like their midfield aspect where they play Montinho still a good amount because he's still solid enough, but
Yeah.
they don't rely on him as much. I'll tell you what, Max Kilman, he's really good. I'll say it right now. He's good.
I think their center backs pairing has been definitely top notch.
Collins and Kilman look
It's like
fantastic together. They don't get away with Cody loaning him out if
Yeah.
this doesn't look good. You're like, oh, that's tough. Why'd you loan Connor Cody out and these guys don't look good? They've looked good so far.
It's like sneaky, a really good center back pairing.
Yeah.
They're both really good, and they're both
Young.
also very young.
Yeah.
So it's like you could have something. there.
Exactly. And not to mention they have Johnny Otto.
Johnny Otto. Johnny Otto's. Get your new car, used cars, whatever you want. But yeah, I mean,
I'm surprised you went good news there. But you also went good news, bad news. You went both.
yeah, it's a bit of both. I mean, to
But
be
the good
fair,
news
we
is the bad
thought,
news first.
we thought they were going to get relegated possibly or be
Yeah.
close because
Well,
it was
they're-
just so bad.
They're hanging around there.
I think the thing is now that there's hope by bringing in these new guys that they're going to light something,
Yeah.
spark some new offense. If it turns out that they just have this kind of sucky offense, then I think it's probably time for Bruno Lage to head out.
Yeah.
Because then at that point, it's like not the players, it's the tactics.
I agree. Which is unfortunate.
And I feel like his seed
because I
is-
love his autism that he has flowing through
His
his veins.
antics.
Yes.
I feel like his seat is warmer than most people realize.
100%. Especially now you actually have the board investing money. We talked about Wolves getting burned a couple times and now they're not investing. Now they're back towards investing big money.
Yeah.
So
Next team.
Manchester United.
I hate to say it, but it's good news.
Oh.
And it's only good news because United fans absolutely burned it to the ground. But, I suppose such things happen. It was really terrible at the start of the season, but of course, things take time to change. It takes time for bald frauds to implement their systems. They brought in some signings. But I will say, it's good news, but it's not that good of news. It's like...
slightly
like
positive.
It's like, well, you're not dying, but you have this like
Stage.
chronic illness.
Yeah. And you have to live with it the rest of your life. It's like, ugh.
I mean, United isn't good.
No, they're doing a good job right now of grinding out results.
Yeah.
But
It's kind of like the counter of like the Newcastle.
I was going to say, if you would ask me good news, bad news, I'd say good news, but for one reason solely. Mr. Rashford. He's
Rashford,
back. You
yeah.
finally actually got production out of your guy that you've been talking about how good he is for the last couple of years, and he hasn't played that well since they had Ole.
Sancho, maybe.
Yeah,
He's been decent.
a better, I guess. Scored today against my club, Sheriff Tiraspol.
I mean, I think overall the thing is winning is the best medicine. It doesn't really matter how at this point. You just need results.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think United fans would be all that happy if they were playing better and losing. I think they just wanted results.
Yeah.
but I think there's still some flaws in the squad. They've only been able to score goals on the counterattack.
Yes.
I mean, there's not much in terms of like any build-up play, and I don't think their defense has been tested that, strongly, I guess. I don't know how to phrase it. But
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a good job of making sure that teams aren't able to get clear-cut chances on them like they were first and second game of the year, but their attack just hasn't looked that great. It's just been slightly more efficient. Rather than it being like C- tier, maybe D+, it's more like C+, B- tier now. And it's enough to get them 1-0 wins and stuff.
Yeah.
But they've been a little fortunate. You look at the Arsenal game, coin flip of do you give that call, do you not? Otherwise, they're down 1-0 inside 15 minutes. So,
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next team. Second to last team. Your club, Arsenal. Good or bad news?
Got bad news.
Yeah.
We're in first place, boys. You know what
Yeah,
that means?
It's only downhill
It's
from
only
here.
down from here.
I thought you were going to talk about injuries because that's inevitable.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, we got lucky with the postponement. Thomas Partey may play this weekend.
Yeah, do you really... They're not playing Everton. Who are they playing? Brentford?
Yeah.
Do you really want to play him? What would you play him, 60 and then sub him? Because you have to make sure he's there for Tottenham.
Yeah.
Especially with Tottenham counterattacking. Like, you might just have to bite the bullet and hope that you can grind out a result against Brentford. But you can't afford for Partey to, he comes back and then gets hurt against Brentford. He has to be there for Tottenham. So.
Yeah, I think there's still worries about injuries, especially when you got guys who are very injury prone, like Thomas Partey. Ben White sounds like he might have a bit of a injury that, maybe not, but, it's still a young squad. We saw some poor defense against United. Some goals that I think could have been prevented.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It feels like Ben White's so good at times, and then sometimes he's just like not very good or invisible. But it's not often that you see that. But when it is, it's like, oh man, it's just like apparent. You can just like tell right away. You're like, oh, this is not going to be a good one for him. But it's only like that 1 out of 10 games. He just doesn't have it.
And I mean, I think obviously playing at right back.
It's a bit of an adjustment, but he was a center back that liked having the ball at his feet. So at Brighton, so he's not like completely exposed. It's more about positioning and stuff, if anything. And
yeah, I think Tomiyasu is just overall a better right back, which
to say the least, yeah. But he's more of a natural, yeah.
But you got to do what you got to do.
Okay, good news, bad news for Tottenham Hotspur. The final team of good news, bad news for Dr. Sam before he takes the lab coat off. Antonio Conte sitting in the waiting room trying to figure out what you're going to diagnose his team with.
I'm going to say good news that you've been able to pick up results by not playing your best.
Yeah.
Anytime you can do that, I think that's a positive.
Did you see like people just finding out that like Antonio Conte has like a terrible Champions League record? Did you see that?
I did not.
People were like, "Oh, what is this? What is like a 28 win percent?" It's like, yeah, it was like that at Juventus, and guess what? It was like that at Chelsea, and now guess what? It's gonna be like that at Tottenham. He's not a cup manager for whatever reason.
Yeah,
it's just not his style. He's more of a campaign manager.
It's a different game. I mean, it makes sense when you look at the style of play where it's kind of just like this grind.
Yeah.
That tends not to do as well in cup competitions where
yeah,
like a more dynamic play style seems to work better.
Yeah. When you're playing against the top teams in Europe, you have to make sure that you're pressing on the gas pedal, not the other team. You
can't grind out a game against like Bayern.
Yeah. that doesn't work.
You get exposed.
Yeah.
Whereas you can do that against, certain teams, but I don't know. It's kind of that Tottenham thing where they don't impress you, but somehow they get the results. And it's like, I don't think I have confidence.
The Forest game was the epitome of that. They literally just got outplayed the whole game, but they scored in the 5th minute on their first counter.
Yeah.
And then they had like 2 or 3 counters in the second half, and they scored on one of those.
It's like, does that mean that they're good, or does that mean they're bad? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. It puts you, they're an enigma, Tottenham.
They really are.
All right, 5 players and managers and or teams, I suppose, that you'll be watching closely these next few weeks in particular.
Let me go back to the table here. Okay, I have one that's kind of interesting.
Okay, I have 1 team, 1 like kind of position, a second team, a player, and then a manager. Would you want to start with teams? Or players or managers? What do you want to start with?
Let's just go one at a time, back and forth.
All right. How many teams do you have, just out of curiosity?
I'm just freeballing it,
You're
man.
freeballing. Okay. Let's see this. The first thing I was going to say, Everton. I'm going to be watching Everton closely because I like watching them.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have really tough games ahead. I wanted to put them in my bold predictions of they're going to shoot up the table. They play an insane schedule coming up. Can I read this to you?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was actually just wondering that.
I'm going to read you their schedule. So they had Arsenal postponed this week. Okay? Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So they would have had to play Arsenal and then West Ham, Southampton, United, Tottenham, Newcastle. That's pretty tough.
Those last 3, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What are you trying to say about Southampton? What are you trying to say about Arsenal? As league leaders, Arsenal to you, my friend. But no, I just feel like it's going to be tough, so I want to watch it because I think they're going to steal one of the, whether it's the Tottenham or United game or something like that. I think they're going to take one.
Pulling out a draw.
What's a team that you were looking at or a player manager?
I was going to say Jesse Marsh.
Okay.
He's got a 1-game ban.
Which was blasphemy. Unbelievable. What could he have said to the 4th official to get like an instant red card from the ref?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just think that his managerial style, not like his tactics or anything, but just how he conducts himself on the touchline, I don't know if it's sustainable throughout the season.
He's going to get multiple reds?
Not,
or are you talking about the effect on the players?
More so like the effect on the players.
Okay.
Like he's just kind of like a wild card and like always angry and...
Yeah, but that kind of encapsulates Leeds.
And
the good and the bad.
And I think there's an element where you could say, oh, it's motivating and whatnot, but I think it also can kind of wear down over time and like
100%.
The act gets old.
100%. That's how it always ends with those guys.
Yeah.
All right. I'll go with the next one. I'll go with Nottingham Forest. Some upcoming games. Pretty winnable. I'm going to read this off to you real quick because I want to find out if Mr. Cooper's finding his team or not. So they were going to play Leeds. That got postponed. That would have been a nice game. Mm-hmm. Fulham, Leicester, Villa, Wolves, and then Brighton.
I think we'll learn a lot about Forest over the
That's what
next
I'm
5
saying.
games.
I'm going to be paying real close attention because you should, if you're worth anything, you win 1 for sure and draw a couple, or you snatch 2 wins and draw like 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a team that I'm going to be watching very, very closely, especially with, I can't wait to figure out how Steve Cooper finds out how to play these 20 new guys.
Yeah.
Who you got next?
I'm going to say Bournemouth.
Okay.
Because I find it interesting to watch them play against teams that aren't like obviously at the very top. This match they play this week is against Newcastle at St. James's Park, so that'll be a tough one. But
it's the Eddie Howe battle.
But after that, they have Brentford and then Leicester. I think that'll be a big one to see.
Yeah,
where they're at, and then
this is where Leicester just shit all over us and come back and play normal.
Yeah, then they play Fulham and Southampton. So kind of like Forest, we'll be able to get a better read on
where they're at,
where Bournemouth are at.
All right. I'm in the Crystal Palace jacket, so I have to talk about this. I'm going to be watching their striker rotation. Is it Edouard? Is it Mateta? I like both guys, but it feels like Vieira can't ever decide which guy's the right guy.
Yeah.
And whoever gets subbed on is better. And I want to see coming up if they lean just on like a hot hand, because Mateta was playing pretty well, but then he started and then he wasn't playing that good, and then Edouard came in as a sub and was playing well. So I'm going to be watching that, because I feel like Palace, we'll get to the predictions, but I think they're going to start ripping off some wins here.
Okay. I'm going to say Brighton, just to see how they adapt to going on without Graham Potter. They don't have a manager
That's
selected yet. Let's see what their fixtures are looking like. They have Liverpool this weekend, Tottenham, Brentford, Forest, and then City. So some tough ones coming
That's why
up,
Graham Potter got out. He got out while the getting was good.
especially with having like an interim manager. You know?
Yeah. So, 2 more left. I have Rashford
Okay.
as a guy I'm going to watch. I got to see if he keeps it going. I got to see if United keeps it going. I mean, the way he's playing right now, it's obviously unsustainable how well he's playing in terms of, just he's clicking on all cylinders, goals and assists left and right.
Yeah.
Their next match is technically City, and then they have Everton, Newcastle, Tottenham, Chelsea. So United, tough schedule coming up.
Yeah.
So we'll see how Mr. Rashford gets on and stuff, but I feel like the City game, and if Chelsea, we'll see how they are with Graham Potter and stuff. It could be tough games.
I think there's something to be said, though, that United are playing more of a counterattack game. And I think that's more suitable against bigger teams anyways. So it might help them.
Yeah.
Just a,
Good.
possibility. I'm going to say Man City.
Okay.
Are they going to pop off, and just...
Yes.
And,
I thought about putting them, but
and just start, dominating?
I was going to say how much separation they can create between themselves and Arsenal/Tottenham.
Or are there going to be these games like against Villa where they could have won, but,
I feel like those games are literally because Pep just like goes in trying to focus on one guy. Like it felt like they're really trying to get Foden in space.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the screen in that left side, in that game in the first half, and there's just nothing going. And then the second half they kind of opened it up more, and what do you know, Erling Haaland scores. So, last one for me. It's kind of basic, nothing too crazy about it. Stevie G in Villa.
Good one.
I mean, it's not cutting time. You have to start getting results. You have to start playing better.
Yeah.
You're in 17th. You just spent a shit ton of money. Unfortunately, a lot of it was on a center back who now has a torn Achilles, but
yeah,
you have to get the ball rolling here, Mr. Gerrard. Here's their list. So they're set to play Leicester this week, but or last week got postponed. Southampton, Leeds, Forest, Chelsea. Those are very, 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 very winnable games if you are actually a good team and your manager knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. You're coming against Chelsea at a good time.
Yeah. Or so you like to think. Now you got Graham Potter getting 2 weeks in with him.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, they have a really good attack on paper.
Yeah.
It's just getting it to execute.
Figuring out which guys are going to fit best against the defenses that you're going against.
And I think also getting your fullbacks into the game.
Yeah.
If they're going to be that much of a part on offense, you have to get them involved somehow.
100%. They should be whipping balls into Ings and Watkins more often.
Yeah.
Who's your last team player, manager thing that you're going to be watching?
I am going to say...
I'm ready for just like out of nowhere. I'm going to be watching for VAR.
VAR. Lee Mason on VAR. Oh, I was going to say Ivan Toney.
Okay. Can he keep it going?
Good. Yeah, and he got the big call-up for England.
Yeah. Did you see that stat about like how many guys are in the Premier League for England? How many guys played in the Championship at one point? How many guys played in League One? How many played in like League Two? I think it was something like 4 or 5 guys played in League Two.
Huh.
Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Ivan Toney. He's pretty good.
So, all right, 5 predictions to wrap it up, and then we'll go through the games. Okay.
All right, these are gonna be just
A hot take galores
Are these like
for the next chunk of the stretch.
Next chunk? Okay,
Yep.
next chunk.
All right.
Okay.
My first one.
Yes.
Wolves will remain in the bottom half of the table. Not too spicy, but
Okay.
they're gonna remain. I should specify. I should pick they won't go above 11th. How about that?
Okay.
Which is bottom of the table, or bottom half of the table. You want me to read all mine, or we're gonna rotate it?
I'm gonna say that Everton pick up 7 points from their next 5 games.
Holy moly! Man U will move down the table in the next 5 games.
Piggybacking off of that, Anthony is not as good as people think.
Okay. Okay.
Let's calm it down. Okay, he got a
He
free
did
goal.
get one. 2 sacks before the end of October.
That I can see. I could see even more.
You want to up it to 3? 3's a bit. We'll go 2. I think 2.
Two's a good number.
It's really 2.5 is the line for it, the over-under.
I think that Fulham will probably drop down from 10th. They'll
Okay.
probably be more around like 15th.
Okay. Crystal Palace is going to get hot, and Wolf is going to start popping off.
Subscribe.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say Arsenal struggles with injuries and goes through a tough stretch,
Okay. All right.
and things start to get a little
Dicey.
dicey.
Okay. Here's my last one. Louis D will carry Liverpool back in the top 4 with wild
He already
goal and
is.
assist. No, but even more. Well, they're only, 7th right now? 8th? So
He's trying.
he is trying.
I think my last one is that Leeds are going to be close to relegation.
I like it.
Yes.
But we'll say all these come to fruition by like mid-November.
Before the World Cup.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, let's go through the games. Tomorrow, Villa, Southampton at Villa Park. What are we looking for in this one?
Well, I'd like to see a convincing performance out of Southampton, personally. I feel like in their games, they've had spells where they've looked good and some spells where they've looked pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see them just like come out, look the better team, play better, score some goals, stay solid defensively, and win the game easily.
Yeah, I just want consistency out of... Right now we don't have anything out of Villa but shit. So we need consistency out of Southampton. Last year, Villa was the inconsistent team. It was good and bad, good and bad. Consistency out of Southampton. I want to see one of these... Because I like certain guys in the attacks for both these teams. I want to see like a 2-2 game because I love the attacks in this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go at Villa. I'm going to go 2-1 Villa. And I don't feel great about doing that. But
I'm going to say 2-1 Southampton.
yeah. Nottingham Forest, Fulham. At
This
the
is
City Ground.
interesting. Coming off of that loss.
Off
against
that
Bournemouth,
loss.
They had to ruminate on it.
Off that loss, Fulham haven't looked the best on the road. But you're going against Mitrovic, and Nottingham Forest's defense has looked quite poor.
Yeah.
I wonder if they just try and shore that up, play a little more conservative. With that said, I'm not anticipating that. I'm going with a 2-2 draw.
I'm going to say 1-1.
Okay. Wolves, City, at the Molineux.
This reminds me of that game last year. I think it was last year where City were just like absolutely dominating them but couldn't score.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think City will probably win easily. Maybe like a 2-0.
Okay. I'm thinking more because I like Wolves' midfield. I like their defense and their ability to hold strong, but I think it's going to be somewhere along the lines of 1-0 maybe. I don't think it's going to be super duper convincing out of City.
I don't see.
I just don't see Wolves scoring.
I don't see any way that this game is like remotely entertaining.
That depends on what you consider entertaining. Bournemouth, Newcastle, we were talking about earlier, at St. James. This feels like a nice Newcastle start to get in a groove.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a little scary for Bournemouth. I mean, you've had those big games against City and against Liverpool away where you just like weren't up for the task.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid, I mean, St. James's Park, it's going to be gonna be a fortress.
Just as hectic as Anfield and more hectic than that Etihad.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a Isak, probably at least 1 goal game. I'm going to go 3-0 Newcastle.
I was going to say 3-0.
Wow. Sorry, Newcastle fans. Your team's going to blow it somehow. Leicester, Tottenham. You talked about Wolves, Man City not being entertaining, and that's where I think you're wrong, because
Reverse.
this game is the ultimate Uno reverse card on your head, because this game is going to stink
That's
big time.
true. I spoke too soon.
Unless Leicester just decide to give the ball away in their own half, like as there's like 10 seconds left and Tottenham get a free breakaway. That's pretty entertaining.
Says you. I found that pretty uncool.
Well, I didn't say that it was cool. I just said entertaining. Whenever a team just like craps all over themselves, kind of like fucking Llorente against Brentford.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, here, we used to have the ball. Here's a clear break on net.
The difference for that is the implications.
That's fair. In this game, who's holding the ball? Leicester? It's just going to be Leicester and like Tottenham's like not even final third, but not like the midfield third, like on the brink of that. And it's just going to be them passing around. And it's going to be like James Maddison trying to like cut in and stuff. It's going to stink. Tottenham's going to hit on the counter. I'm going to go 4-1. Harvey Barnes, consolation goal.
I'm going to say 2-0 Tottenham.
Okay. Arsenal, Brentford.
It's going to be a tough one for Arsenal, I think.
At the Brentford Georgia Tech Community
The Georgia
Stadium.
Tech, let's go.
Yeah, this is going to be pretty tough for Arsenal. Didn't win there last year. Brentford coming in playing pretty well. I think that Mbeumo might give Arsenal some fits.
I always get worried about the long throw-ins. There's something about the long throw-ins.
It's very
man.
unnerving because anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
It's
a total wild card.
The only thing I could compare it to would be like football, like a onside kick, but if it like was always 50-50 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just like you never know what's going to happen
Yeah.
with a scrum. I'm going to say a 1-1 draw.
I was going to say 2-2.
Okay. Last game of the week, unfortunately, as we have Brighton Palace, the ultimate South Derby, if there ever was one, postponed. United Leeds postponed, and Chelsea Liverpool postponed. We have Everton West Ham.
I think Everton might pull one out here.
I
think
could
they
see it
might.
because West Ham are just not.
They're
They're
not
not
good.
playing bad, but they're not playing well, to say the least.
Yeah.
And I don't know if West Ham's going to change that. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, a week off does help teams at times to kind of get their head right. But Everton, they've been playing well. I'm going to say a 1-1 draw.
I'm going to say 1-0 Everton.
Okay, who gets it? Connor Cody gets revenge for
Connor Cody.
for the
This time not offside.
Yes. We don't have midweek games, do we? No. We have next
No.
Saturday. So, all right, 7 games.
7 games.
That's all we get, unfortunately.
Lucky number
but
7.
yes.
I think the best part is that Brighton Crystal Palace game was going to be postponed before because of like a train strike or something.
Yeah.
Not even related.
I know. It's brutal.
But hey, it's better than nothing like last weekend where we just sat there pondering our lives.
Yeah.
What do we do?
I stared out a window the whole weekend.
Yeah, I watched paint dry.
You have a prediction for the 7 games?
My spicy prediction this weekend is that I don't know. Jan Bednarek's going to score.
You know he's on Villa, right? It's the revenge. He's going to get revenge on Southampton? It's unbelievable.
No. I think, what did I say? Forest was 1-1.
You said 1-1, yeah. If you called a Fulham non-Mitrovic goal, I think I'd crap my pants because that would imply someone else could score for them.
Yeah, that's impossible. I think Brendan Johnson is going to score from a penalty.
Wow. Yeah. How about that?
How about that?
All right. Well, we know that the people don't love the narrative podcast as much as the recaps, but we had to come through and give you the narrative podcast anyways because there's nothing else to talk about.
We must provide.
Yes.
For the people.
We provide service like Kevin De Bruyne. What can you say? And you, the listener, you just have to be Erling Haaland.
See, that's the thing. Whether they listen or not, we're still here.
We're still providing service. We're Joao Cancelo. He's just spamming crosses in the box.
We are literally spamming crosses IRL onto YouTube, onto your YouTube feeds,
less like
Spotify feeds.
It would be less like Cancelo. It would be more like Liverpool with Alexander-Arnold when they're like down and they don't really have a plan and they're just like, cross it in the box.
It'd be more like Chelsea.
Yeah, there's just no one.
There's
no
no
one
hope.
there. There's no one there. But Reece James is swinging in great balls. We're dropping great podcasts.
Yeah,
and no one's really listening except you, the listener.
Hey, but we love you.
We love you. Tell your friends about us.
Keep
supporting. Keep the faith.
Even just hitting the like button and leave a cheeky little comment.
Absolutely.
Even if you say, "Hey, you guys suck," I dare you. I dare you to comment, "You guys suck." That's my challenge for you. It all helps. We're trying to hit the algorithm. So.
Yes.
So anyways, we'll catch you again.
Catch
next
you on the flip
week.
side.
This has been another episode of the Premiership Perusal podcast.